Most students are not failing because they are lazy. They are failing because their study method demands too much energy before the real work even begins. They make long timetables, collect productivity apps, watch motivational videos, and promise that tomorrow will be different. But when tomorrow arrives, the plan feels heavy, the phone feels easy, and the day disappears. Japanese systems offer a different path. They do not ask you to become perfect overnight. They help you make progress through small actions, clear spaces, visible work, deep understanding, and honest reflection. In this video, you will learn 5 systems that can make studying calmer, sharper, and far more consistent. 1. The Kaizen Minimum Progress System. The first system begins with a simple idea. Improvement should be small enough to repeat. Many students design their study plans for the person they hope to become, not for the person they are today. They imagine waking up at 5, studying for 3 hours before breakfast, finishing every assignment early, revising every subject, exercising, reading, and sleeping perfectly. The plan looks impressive on paper, but it contains one hidden problem. It requires a completely different personality from the first day. When the plan becomes too demanding, the mind does not see opportunity. It sees pressure. You may sit at your desk, look at the size of the task, and suddenly feel tired before opening the book. Then you delay for 10 minutes. 10 minutes becomes an hour. At night, you blame yourself and create an even stricter plan for tomorrow. This is how many students become trapped in a cycle of ambition, avoidance, guilt, and another unrealistic promise. Kaizen breaks that cycle by replacing dramatic change with continuous improvement. The goal is not to prove how much you can do in one heroic day. The goal is to create a level of progress you can maintain even on an ordinary day. Imagine you need to revise a difficult science chapter. The usual approach is to write, "Study science for 2 hours." That instruction is vague, large, and emotionally heavy. The Kaizen approach makes the first action much smaller. Open the chapter, read 1 page, write 3 questions, and answer one of them without looking. This does not mean you must stop after 1 page. It means you remove the resistance that prevents you from beginning. Starting is often the hardest part, because the mind exaggerates the size of unfinished work. Once the book is open and your attention has entered the subject, continuing becomes easier. Create what we can call a minimum study action. This is the smallest version of a study session that still counts as real progress. For mathematics, it could be solving 2 questions. For languages, it could be learning 5 useful words and using them in sentences. For history, it could be recalling 1 event from memory. For exam preparation, it could be reviewing 10 flashcards. Your minimum action should take between 5 and 15 minutes. It must be so clear that you can do it without planning again. Study chemistry is not clear. Complete questions 1 to 3 from the acids and bases exercise is clear. Work on English is not clear. Read 1 page aloud and summarize it in 4 sentences is clear. This system becomes powerful when you separate the minimum from the maximum. The minimum is what protects consistency. The maximum depends on your available time and energy. On a strong day, your 10-minute start may become a 90-minute session. On a difficult day, you may complete only the minimum. Both days are useful because both keep your learning alive. Use the 2-level plan each morning. Write 1 essential task and 1 growth task. The essential task is the minimum progress that must happen today. The growth task is the additional work you will do if time and energy allow. For example, essential. Revise 1 biology diagram and label it from memory. Growth. Complete the entire chapter test. This removes the all-or-nothing mentality. You no longer think, if I cannot finish everything, there is no point starting. You know exactly what counts as a successful day, and you also know how to extend that success. There is another part of Kaizen that students often ignore. Improve the method, not only the effort. Suppose you study for an hour but remember very little. The usual response is to study for 2 hours next time. Kaizen asks a better question. What tiny adjustment could make the next hour more effective? Maybe you need to close the book every 10 minutes and recall the main idea. Maybe you need to solve examples before reading more theory. Maybe you need to keep your phone in another room. Maybe your notes are too detailed and need to be reduced to questions. Improvement is not always about doing more. Sometimes it is about removing one weak step. At the end of each session, write one sentence. Next time, I will make this easier by... Finish the sentence honestly. You may write, starting with practice questions, preparing my materials first, using a timer, or studying before dinner instead of after. That single sentence prevents every study session from becoming a repeat of the last one. You are not simply working, you are improving the way you work. The Kaizen system also changes how you respond to missed days. If you fail to study on Tuesday, you do not punish yourself with a huge Wednesday schedule. You return with the smallest useful action. The purpose is to restart quickly, not repay imaginary debt. A missed day is a gap. Turning it into a week is a decision. So use this rule. Never demand a perfect comeback. Demand an immediate comeback. If you lose your routine, study for 10 minutes today. If you avoided a subject for a week, answer one question now. If your entire plan collapses, rebuild only the next step. Kaizen teaches you that consistency is not created by never falling behind. It is created by making the return simple. 2. The Seiri Seiton friction-free study system. The second system is based on two principles often associated with Japanese organization. Seiri, which means sorting what is necessary from what is unnecessary, and Seiton, which means arranging what remains so it is easy to use. Students usually think their study problem exists inside their mind. They say, I cannot focus, I have no discipline, or I get distracted too easily. But sometimes the problem is not the mind. It is the number of decisions the mind must make before studying can begin. You sit down, but the correct notebook is missing. Your pen has no ink. The charger is on the other side of the room. 5 books are open even though you need only one. Your phone is beside your hand. Old papers cover the table. Notifications appear. Someone asks where an item is. Before you have learned anything, your attention has already been divided. A cluttered study space does more than look untidy. It keeps presenting unfinished choices. Every object silently asks for attention. Even when you do not consciously look at it, your mind must keep ignoring it. The Seiri Seiton system is not about creating a beautiful desk for social media. It is about making the correct action easier than the distracting action. Begin with Seiri. Remove everything that does not belong to the next study session. Not everything you own, not every object in your room, only what does not serve the work in front of you. If you are solving mathematics, you may need a textbook, notebook, pen, calculator, and water. You probably do not need 3 other subject books, headphones, snack wrappers, yesterday's notes, a second device, and your phone. The rule is simple. 1 session, 1 subject, 1 visible set of materials. This creates a boundary around your attention. When your eyes move around the desk, everything they see supports the same task. Now apply Seiton. Give every necessary item a fixed place and a clear order of use. Put the book in the center, rough paper on one side, completed questions on the other, and water far enough away to avoid spills. Keep extra stationery in one container. Place the phone outside reach, preferably outside the room or inside a bag. Prepare the next subject before taking a break. The benefit is not merely tidiness. The benefit is reduced friction. You do not waste mental energy asking, where do I begin? The environment already answers. Create a study launchpad. This is a small area where everything needed for tomorrow's first session is prepared the night before. Leave the correct page marked. Put the required notebook on top. Write the first question on a small card. Charge the calculator or laptop if needed. When you arrive in the morning, the task is already waiting in an unfinished state. You do not need to choose a subject, search for materials, or create a plan while half awake. You simply continue what your past self prepared. This is especially useful for students who waste the first 30 minutes arranging things. Preparation should happen before the study session, not during it. The same principle applies to digital space. A laptop can look clean while containing endless distraction. 20 browser tabs, social media shortcuts, messages, entertainment recommendations, and unrelated files create digital clutter. Use one browser window for the subject. Close every tab that does not support the current task. Keep study documents in folders named by subject and topic, not in a general downloads folder. Turn off non-essential notifications. Now take the system one step further by arranging your day according to energy, not only according to time. Many students organize tasks randomly. They do difficult problem solving when exhausted, and easy review when their mind is fresh. Then they assume the subject is too hard. Sort your tasks into 3 energy levels. High-energy tasks require deep thinking, learning a new concept, writing an essay, solving unfamiliar problems, or memorizing difficult material. Medium-energy tasks include practice questions, summarizing, creating flashcards, and reviewing mistakes. Low-energy tasks include organizing notes, watching a required explanation, checking answers, or preparing materials. Place high-energy work in the part of the day when you naturally think best. For many students, this is morning, but not for everyone. Medium-energy work can be done later. Low-energy tasks should fill the periods when concentration is weaker. This prevents you from wasting your best attention on easy tasks and demanding deep focus when your brain is already tired. Seiri also means removing unnecessary commitments from your study plan. Look at your timetable. Does every task deserve to be there? Students often create lists filled with low-value work. Rewriting perfect notes, decorating headings, watching repeated explanations, organizing files again, or reading the same paragraph without testing themselves. Ask 3 questions about every task. Will this help me understand? Will this help me remember? Will this help me perform in the exam or real situation? If the answer is no to all 3, remove it. A full schedule is not always a productive schedule. Sometimes it is simply a collection of activities that feel academic. The Seiri Seiton system teaches a powerful lesson. Focus is easier when your surroundings and schedule stop competing with your goal. You do not need to become stronger than every distraction. You need to stop placing every distraction beside you. Before your next session, do a 60-second reset. Remove unrelated items, prepare the correct materials, close unnecessary tabs, and write the exact first action. Then begin before you feel fully ready. 3. The Kanban visible flow system. The third system is Kanban, a Japanese method used to make work visible as it moves through stages. For a student, Kanban solves a common problem. Too much work exists in the mind at the same time. You may have an assignment due Friday, a test next week, 3 chapters to revise, notes to complete, a presentation to prepare, and messages from classmates asking about group work. None of these tasks is physically happening at the same moment, but your mind keeps carrying all of them. This creates a false feeling that everything is urgent. When everything feels urgent, choosing one task becomes difficult. You may jump between subjects, begin several things, finish nothing, and end the day feeling busy but uncertain. Kanban removes that confusion by placing work where you can see it. Create 3 columns on paper, a whiteboard, or a simple digital board: to do, doing, done. Write each task on a separate card or line, but do not write broad categories such as study physics or prepare for exams. A Kanban task must describe a visible piece of work that can move from one column to another. Instead of study physics, write review Newton's laws, solve questions 1 to 10, check errors, and rewrite incorrect solutions. Instead of English assignment, write choose an argument, create outlines, write first draft, edit introduction, submit final copy. This changes one frightening task into a sequence of manageable actions. The most important Kanban rule is to limit the doing column. Most students place 5 or 6 tasks in progress because the beginning feels productive, but every unfinished task consumes attention. When you switch repeatedly, the brain must reload context, where you stopped, what you were thinking, what information matters, and what should happen next. Set a work-in-progress limit of 1 major task and 1 minor task. Your major task might be completing a mathematics exercise. Your minor task might be checking 5 flashcards during a short break. Nothing else enters the doing column until one of these moves forward or returns to to-do for a clear reason. This system protects concentration without demanding long hours. Imagine you have 90 minutes after school. Without a system, you may open biology, remember a history deadline, check a group chat, begin an essay, and then return to biology. At the end, every subject has received a little attention, but no meaningful unit is complete. With Kanban, you select 1 card, answer biology questions 1 to 8. It moves into doing. You finish, check the answers, and move it to done. Then you choose the next card. The done column is important. Students often see only what remains. They finish 10 tasks and still feel unsuccessful because 3 are unfinished. Visible completion gives the mind evidence of progress. It also helps you estimate your real capacity. At the end of the week, review the done column. How many tasks did you complete? Which tasks took longer than expected? Which subject produced the most unfinished work? You now have information, not vague feelings. Kanban also improves planning because it reveals bottlenecks. Suppose several cards remain stuck at doing. Look closely. Maybe the task is too large. Maybe instructions are unclear. Maybe you need help from a teacher. Maybe you are waiting for another person. A stuck card should not remain a source of silent stress. Mark the reason and define the next action. If an essay is stuck because you do not understand the question, the next action is not work harder. It is ask the teacher what the second part of the prompt requires. If a chemistry chapter is stuck because the basics are weak, the next action is review the 5 key definitions before solving questions. The system turns confusion into diagnosis. Kanban also works well for exam revision. Make a board with 4 stages: not started, learning, testing, confidence. Move each topic through the stages. A topic does not enter confident simply because you read it. It enters confidence only after you can recall the main idea, answer questions, and explain the concept without heavy support. This prevents the common mistake of confusing familiarity with mastery. A chapter may look familiar because you have seen it many times, but recognition is not the same as retrieval. You can use different cards for different topics, but the color is not important. The movement is important. Every card should tell you 2 things: where the task is now and what must happen next. Kanban also reduces procrastination because it replaces the question, "What should I study?" with a visible choice. You do not need to redesign your day each time you sit down. You select the highest value card allowed by your work-in-progress limit. If a new task appears while studying, do not switch immediately. Add it to the to-do column. This tells your brain, the task has been captured. It will not be forgotten. Then return to the current card. This is how focused students handle interruptions. They do not depend on having fewer thoughts. They use a system that prevents every thought from becoming an action. 4. The Shoshin Deep Learning System. The 4th system is based on Shoshin, often translated as beginner's mind. It means approaching something with openness instead of assuming you already understand it. This may sound philosophical, but it solves a very practical study problem: the illusion of knowledge. You read a chapter twice. The sentences feel familiar. You recognize the diagrams. You understand the teacher while they explain. Because everything looks known, you believe you have learned it. Then the exam asks you to explain the idea without the book, apply it to a new question, or connect it to another topic, and suddenly your mind becomes blank. The problem was not intelligence. The problem was passive familiarity. Shoshin asks you to meet the topic like a learner, even when you have seen it before. Instead of saying, "I know this," ask, "Can I produce this knowledge without help?" This creates humility, and humility is useful because it exposes gaps before the exam exposes them. Use the blank page test. After studying a section, close every source. On a blank page, write the topic at the top. Then write everything you can remember: definitions, steps, examples, formulas, connections, and questions. Do not open the book the moment you struggle. Stay with the discomfort for a little while. Retrieval feels harder than rereading because the brain is doing real work. When you finish, compare your page with the original material. Mark what was correct, what was incomplete, and what was missing. Study only the gaps, then repeat the test later. This is far more efficient than reading the entire section again. The beginner's mind also changes the questions you ask. Weak study questions are, "Have I read this? Have I highlighted this? Does this look familiar?" Strong study questions are, "Can I explain this in simple language? Can I give my own example? Can I solve a new problem using it? Can I connect it to something I learned earlier? Can I identify the mistake in a wrong answer?" These questions measure understanding, not exposure. Now use the 3-layer explanation method. Layer 1 is the child explanation. Explain the idea in the simplest language possible, without technical terms unless they are necessary. If you cannot explain it simply, your understanding may still depend on memorized wording. Layer 2 is the student explanation. Use the correct academic terms, show the process, and include one example. Layer 3 is the examiner's explanation. Answer a likely test question under time pressure, with the detail and structure required for marks. For example, suppose you are learning supply and demand. In Layer 1, you might say, "When many people want something and there is not enough of it, the price often rises." In Layer 2, you define demand, supply, equilibrium, and show how a shortage affects price. In Layer 3, you analyze a specific market change using a diagram or written argument. Each layer reveals a different kind of weakness. You may understand the basic idea but lack correct terminology. You may know definitions but struggle to apply them. You may understand everything but fail to organize an exam answer. Shoshin also means being willing to ask basic questions. Students sometimes stay silent because they fear a question will make them look unintelligent. But pretending to understand creates a much larger problem later. A strong learner is not embarrassed by the first gap. A strong learner wants to find the gap quickly. Keep a confusion list while studying. Whenever something feels unclear, write the exact question. Do not write, "I do not understand chapter 4. Write, "Why does the sign become negative in the second step?" Or, "What is the difference between mitosis and meiosis at this stage?" A precise question can be answered. A vague feeling cannot. At the end of the session, solve each confusion using your textbook, teacher, classmate, or a reliable explanation. If you still cannot answer it, carry the question into the next lesson. This gives purpose to your attention. The beginner's mind also protects you from overcomplicated notes. When students are insecure, they often copy every sentence. The page becomes full, but the mind remains empty. Shoshin asks you to create notes that help you think. Use question-based notes. On one side, write a question. On the other side, write a concise answer. Add examples only where they clarify meaning. Add a common mistake if the topic is easily confused. Shoshin also improves practice. Do not repeat only questions you already know how to solve. Include unfamiliar variations. A student who completes 20 identical problems may feel confident but panic when the exam changes the wording. After mastering a basic type, ask, "What happens if one condition changes? Can I solve this backwards? Can I explain why another method fails? Can I identify the fastest approach?" This turns practice into adaptability. Use the teach before sleep check. At the end of the day, choose one important idea and explain it aloud for 2 minutes without looking at notes. Imagine you are teaching someone who has never studied the subject. Where your explanation becomes confused, your understanding is still weak. Write that point down for tomorrow. The purpose is not to sound impressive. It is to discover whether the knowledge has become yours. 5. The Hansei correction loop system. The fifth system is Hansei, a Japanese practice of reflection used to examine performance honestly and improve the next attempt. Many students work hard but repeat the same mistakes. They lose marks because they misread questions, forget formulas, rush the final step, manage time poorly, or revise the wrong topics. After receiving a disappointing result, they feel upset, promise to work harder, and then return to the same method. Effort without reflection can make failure more exhausting, not less likely. Hansei creates a correction loop. You study, test, review, adjust, and try again. Each cycle should produce information that improves the next cycle. Begin with a mistake log. After homework, quizzes, mock tests, or practice questions, do not only check the final score. Record every important mistake under one of 4 causes: knowledge gap, process error, attention error, time error. A knowledge gap means you did not know or understand the required information. A process error means you understood the topic but used the wrong method or sequence. An attention error means you missed a sign, copied a number incorrectly, ignored part of the question, or made a careless mistake. A time error means you knew what to do but could not complete it efficiently. These categories matter because each mistake needs a different solution. A knowledge gap requires relearning and retrieval. A process error requires comparing methods and practicing the correct steps. An attention error requires a checking routine. A time error requires timed practice and better task selection. Without categories, students respond to every problem by studying longer. But studying longer will not automatically fix rushed reading or poor checking. For each mistake, write a correction rule. For example, mistake: I answered only one part of a 2-part question. Correction rule: underline every command word before writing. Mistake: I forgot the formula. Correction rule: recall the formula from memory before solving 3 practice problems. Mistake: I spent 15 minutes on a low-mark question. Correction rule: mark difficult questions and return after completing the easier section. Mistake: my essay had ideas but no clear structure. Correction rule: spend 4 minutes creating a paragraph plan before writing. A mistake becomes useful when it changes future behavior. Now create a 5-minute Hansei review at the end of each study day. Ask yourself 3 questions. What moved forward today? Where did I lose time or attention? What is one correction I will use tomorrow? Keep the answers short. Reflection should produce direction, not self-criticism. You might write, I completed 2 sections of chemistry. I lost time switching between messages and notes. Tomorrow I will keep the phone outside the room for the first session. Or, I revised history but could not explain the causes clearly. Tomorrow I will create a cause and effect map before answering questions. Notice that the final line is specific. Try harder tomorrow is not a correction. Complete 5 timed questions before checking answers is a correction. Hansei should also be used weekly. Once a week, look at your study record, Kanban board, mistake log, and upcoming deadlines. Then answer 4 questions. Which method helped me remember the most? Which subject is becoming a bottleneck? Which task consumed time without producing enough value? What should I continue, stop, and change next week? This prevents you from following a routine simply because you created it. A routine is a tool, not a rule. If it is not producing learning, it must be adjusted. Students often fear changing plans because they think change means failure. In reality, refusing to change a weak plan is the greater failure. Hansei also protects confidence. After a poor result, the mind may create a global judgment. I am bad at mathematics. I cannot write. Or, I always fail under pressure. These statements are too broad to be useful. Reflection replaces identity judgments with observable facts. Instead of, I am bad at mathematics, say, I lose accuracy when equations require several transformations. Instead of, I cannot write, say, my arguments are clear, but my examples are too general. Instead of, I always fail under pressure, say, I spend too long on the first section and rush the final 20 minutes. A specific problem can be trained. A negative identity only creates helplessness. Use the evidence rule. Never criticize yourself without naming the behavior, the cause, and the correction. Behavior. What happened? Cause. Why did it happen? Correction. What will change next time? This makes reflection calm and practical. Hansei is especially powerful before exams. After every practice paper, do not immediately take another paper. Spend enough time analyzing the first one. For every lost mark, ask, was the content missing? Was the question misunderstood? Was the answer poorly structured? Was the work incomplete? Was time used badly? Then create a correction session based on the pattern. If most marks were lost through knowledge gaps, revise those topics. If marks were lost through exam technique, practicing more content alone will not solve the problem. The goal is not to complete the largest number of mock tests. The goal is to become a different test taker after each one. When Hansei becomes part of your routine, mistakes stop being proof that you are incapable. They become instructions. Every week result contains information about what to practice, remove, organize, or repeat. That is how a student improves without depending on endless motivation. The system keeps converting experience into a better next attempt. You do not need a perfect timetable, a 12-hour study day, or a sudden burst of discipline. You need a system that still works when motivation is low. Start small with Kaizen. Clear friction with Seiri and Seiton. Make progress visible with Kanban. Test your understanding through Shoshin. Correct your direction with Hansei. These systems are not shortcuts around effort. They make sure your effort is not wasted. Tonight, do not redesign your entire life. Choose one system, prepare one action, and begin. The student who improves the process every day eventually changes the result completely.